exhibit, which is called God's Totems and Tricksters, and also to the special performance by teXtmoVes. I've had the pleasure of watching them rehearse the last few weeks, and it's been a lot of fun to see how they interact with the sculpture and really bring it to life. So I think you really enjoy the performance. The other thing I like about the group is it's a great example of crossing disciplines. You know, you have art, poetry, and dance, and also it's an intergenerational group, which I think we need more of today. So the exhibit itself is an imaginary kingdom, and it's basically about man's spiritual life and his belief in a spirit that is more powerful than himself. And the various pieces, gods, totems, tricksters, goddesses, are in a sense symbols of a spirit, or they're icons, or perhaps even vessels that contain the spirit. And it's been said that sometimes chanting can release the spirit. So I'll ask you to refrain for now, but if at the end of the performance you would like to chant, feel free, and let's see what happens. I'm going to introduce Klein, and the plan is that she will talk a little bit about teXtmoVes and what it is, and what its purpose is. And then we're going to have a performance, and then we'll have a question and answer period, so you can talk with the dancers and the poet, and ask them a little bit about why they did what they did, etc. So I'm going to turn this over to Ken.
Thank you. We've had a wonderful time working with Joe's absolutely incredibly imaginative pieces, street trash, that have been shaped into these spirits, these totems and gods and tricksters. We're mostly tricksters today, being silly, being confusing, having fun with each other and with these wonderful things, listening to Judson Evans' marvelously imaginative poetry. I've said, teXtmoVes is what Joe told you. We've been performing since April of 2016, so we're now coming up for our third spring of performances, and we perform in galleries, we perform in libraries, we perform in concert halls, we perform wherever anybody wants us to perform, okay? So that's it. I said about this performance, we're bringing coherence to chaos, and one of our dancers, Thea Anderson, said, no, we're enlarging chaos. So you decide, and we'll answer your questions afterward. I'm very happy and delighted to be dancing with Thea Anderson, Audrey Albert King, and Jim Banta.
Gramophone oil can. What's that reggaeton waltz you're grinding?
Totemic wisdom. Be careful what you wish for. Two-tailed cat switches parallel,
Parallel.
criss, cross, criss cross.
All the cats of the Acropolis scatter in the waste paper wind.
Meow.
Catatonic cat, you're all slant, an unsigned cast.
Meow.
Spider mother, your seal-tight secret glue is Cheese Whiz.
Sculptor's studio. From the drying wood, a tiny spider.
Come into my office, said Anansi to the fly.
Lurky joins the women, becomes pregnant.
Oh. Oh.
Lurky gives birth to Schleppnir, the eight-legged horse.
Nay.
Nay.
Fucking A.
Dreadlock centaur, your cocktail umbrella pulses with bean coils. Nails pounded for luck in the face of a god.
March wind opening my coat.
Expert with lute strings, expert with bowstrings. Nothing I said could tug at her heartstrings. 1, 2, 3.
feather by feather, each separate migration in a loose-jawed windsock. Pizza-faced mariner, you hoodwinked calypso with your cablegrams. Birthday cake face, forever forbidden to blow out your own candles. Caw and scimitar. Leaker, you throw that scarecrow shade. Sticky wicket, garden tool disguised as a god. I refuse to worship you. Too much winter for somersaults among these bleached broomsticks. Kalimba shadow dance, all triggers and straw fires. Crawdad comb over, disheveled nests in the airport hangar. The white elephant, the elephant in the room, vacuum-packed pachyderm. Sepulchre and umbrella steps sweep you off the game board. A whole Easter island of Dalai Lamas can't pry your white ass from that chair. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
We'd like to have a little discussion now if we could, and then we'll invite you for a glass of wine and to stay a little longer and enjoy the exhibit. But I think it would be good if we had a chance to ask the dancers some questions of the poet, Judson, and let's see if we can have a little conversation. So,
Mary Campbell.
I just want to say that I know you were talking it through while I was already here out in the lobby. So how improvisatory, or this is kind of the last minute, 2:30 this afternoon. So I'm just trying to figure out whether your whole routine is a little bit improvisatory.
We are,
Or totally, 100%.
not totally.
No.
No, it's structured improvisation. We worked a few rehearsals first. And first just with the dancers and then bringing Judson in. And we have certain set places where we all know where the other person is going to be. And then we have places, if we're there, we can sort of do whatever we want to around the place, okay? And we set in where the speaking happened, and where we did a unison, such as this is Audrey's movement, that where she initiated that and designed that, choreographed that movement, and she also choreographed the birthing, throwing the infant Schleppner, from person to person to person. Of course, Loki is the trickster god of the Scandinavians, and so he does give birth to an eight-legged horse, which he was for Odin, was supposed to be the king of the gods' horse, was Schleppner. So we worked in some of the thematic things that Joe was working with in terms of tricksters, but a lot of this was improvised, and we're performers. And so we give each other energy when it starts, and you give us energy. We're no good without the audience. I mean, it is, at least that's what I feel, that the audience gives us a lot of energy and space to play. And
And
that's
there are
important.
clicks. There are clicks that happens, like the blowing out the candle on your. There are clicks that just naturally happen.
Yeah.
Synchronicity.
So Judson, this is the first time Judson has worked with us. How did it feel?
It was fun.
Talk about it.
It was fun. I wrote a few of them just from looking at the art before I had a chance to come in. And then when I came in, it was completely different because the pieces are so powerful to be around. And also the dancers too. So sometimes things really clicked. The blowing out the candles was a very spontaneous thing where I wrote that poem and just read it, and then they immediately did that.
Yeah.
And then that stuck. And then stuff with the shadows too worked out really, really well. Because to me that was one of the most interesting things, seeing the way the shadows had their own existence. Yeah. We forgot one that we just improvised today, the garden god.
Yeah, we forgot it. Well, I was there. The garden god, you ought to all go over and look at the garden god. It has some interesting anatomy on it. But they're
perfect.
The wong, yes, it doesn't turn
If
though.
you go over there for a moment, I will recite the poem.
Oh, great.
Sorry.
Okay, this is.
Garden god, moss in all the right places.
I think we too, had made, a sculpture that we had an affinity to as well. We had different affinities to different sculptures, and then different sculptures lend itself to different movement based on what history we bring to the sculpture.
Could you talk about that a little more? Like, in your case, what was the...
In my case, the goddess of mediation,
Yes.
I had that's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I had possibly a spatial affinity to this sculpture, but then when I learned more about it, movement came to me, so I wanted to explore, and I think we each might have, I don't want to speak for anybody else, had similar experiences of why, I don't know why everybody was drawn to their sculptures.
Audrey should say something, Jim. Which were you most drawn to?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
It changed over the course of the weeks. At first I was really into the cat up there on the pole that's making the shadow. The ostrich also. I enjoyed the ostrich a lot. But each week it was different.
It felt like Judson had a aggressive relationship, shall we say, with this guy here. Can you say that poem again? The final
The
closing.
end,
this,
the end.
this one, it would take a whole Easter Island of Dalai Lamas to pull your white ass out of that chair. Yeah.
That's just great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jim, you composed the Apollo Daphne sequence.
Oh, yeah.
What drew you to that?
Well, just because of the name involved gods, and so I was trying to think of a god that I had seen involved in dance before, and Balanchine did the Apollo dance, and so I thought it would be cute if we sort of just borrowed a couple little images from that really quick.
The feet.
So the girls together with the legs, and then the girls together supporting the head. Those are direct steals from his ballet, and then we just kind of tried to blend it in with the rest of what we were doing. Karen was very indulgent of me being.
Well, it was wonderful because the lines that Jim composed were very dancerly, made it possible for us to work in those particular movements, so that was sort of choreographed together. One of the places that we worked just together on one thing.
Did you write while they rehearsed?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he was here at a couple of the rehearsals, and really 3 rehearsals.
Well, I was only here for 2.
2.
But I just sat and wrote.
And today, for the 3rd time, and we did a run through this morning, and which was really chaotic. Oh God! Oh well. We know what we're doing, right? Right. You take it.
Oh, I have a question for Joe. I was wondering how you thought the performance and what they were doing added, subtracted. Was it within the subject, expanding it, or?
I guess I thought it really enriched the whole installation. I mean, these pieces sit here all week, but when they start, and they're very uninhibited, as you can see, and when they start to really interact with them, I think it enriches the whole installation.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
It certainly sparked our imaginations to work with them and relate to them and play with them, even though they aren't moving. They are moving so much, and there's so much detail.
And Joe spent some time with us, one of our early rehearsals, explaining the backstory to a bunch of them, which helped an awful lot.
Thank you for adding. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, most of them have really interesting backstories, which maybe you guys can talk to him about at
What
another
about the theme
opportunity.
of the cat? Yes, I see.
The cats were inspired by Haruki Murakami's novels. So I don't know if any of you know his writing, but in his novels, he often has cats that they're just in a room with the main character, and suddenly they start speaking to the character.
Right.
And I said, well, if he can do that with his novels, I can do it with my sculpture. So I included the cats. That's how I really got started with the cats. And of course, cats in some cultures have been deities, like in ancient Egypt. So they worked quite well. And then I guess when I showed it earlier, people kept saying, would you please add more cats? So that's what I did. People have been here and they often want to buy the cats, right?
That's really too bad.
I think they add humor to the installation too.
Yes.
And some of them have 2 tails.
The 2 tails.
That's great.
And notice, it took me a little while to notice that they have rings in their noses.
Yeah.
So they're decorated. Yes,
How
Joyce.
many people are involved in making all this and
Me.
collecting?
That would be one.
Yourself,
Yes,
collecting all this stuff.
yes.
Wow.
So you
So I'm
basically
seeing
have to have a good eye, and sometimes people bring me trash.
We have a lot.
You have a basement, you can come over.
But I purged my studio now, so otherwise it gets to be a little overwhelming. But when I see a piece and I see potential in it, then I usually try to grab it. Like these two pieces here are actually wooden pipe organs.
Oh.
And when I saw them, I immediately, you could see that it could be
mouths.
turned into a figure. So I said I better get those right away. And they were in my studio for a while, and then eventually this is what became of them. So,
How long, Joe, did it take you to fashion this large exhibit?
I would say, I started about 3 years ago,
Yeah.
but I didn't work on it continuously for 3 years. But with each installation, I added a new piece. And for this piece, I added the god of the prevailing winds. So I thought it would be nice to have something from the ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very
Does
much.
any
Shall we
other
get to another-
questions?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing that's really important to me. In museums, it's very difficult to have, now that I look retroactively back, a relationship with the object. Because you aren't allowed even to get, in my case, close enough to see it.
Yeah.
To have you all approaching them and having clear relations and projections on them, and suddenly made me feel like I can have them too.
Yes.
I can do something relational and expressive with any of these things too. So it was a huge gift that way. I think
Being
I
a
will.
poet might help in that
Yes.
regard, since you are.
Yes, he is.
I just felt like it was a door that opened for the first time in my 65 years this afternoon, and I will take it with me back even to the museum.
I think that's a good point, because sometimes when you go to a museum, you feel as though things are untouchable,
Yeah.
or they're in cases and you have to stand back, or they're so valuable that you can't get near them.
And so serious that you can't laugh.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right. And
The
so
zombie
aesthetic.
look.
Right. That you can't say even a whole Easter Island full of Dalai Lamas couldn't get your way out.
Well, just to speak to it, I think it's an active relationship. I
Yeah.
think creating the relationship, how to create relationship with art, I find fascinating. For me, those two figures are now part of me. I created relationship with them. So I think my question is, how does one go about creating relationship with art? And for me, that's through movement relationally, through actually creating the relationship.
Well, it was only through your movements that I got that finally, after a gazillion years of being, being an artist, being in everything. But you guys did it. So, wow.
Well, one of the first things we did when we came and were confronted, we had seen pictures of it, but we were not prepared for how it is in actuality, because the picture is flat, and everything was sort of on top of each other, so it wasn't the same experience. So the first thing we did was, if I'm remembering correctly, we decided individually which ones speak to you. And to start, each of us picked different ones that we liked. And some of us liked the same ones, but we were quite diverse in the ones that we were drawn to.
Don't you think that's about aesthetics? Connie?
Yeah.
I think that might have to do something with aesthetics, and whether it's balance, whether it's space, and what is it maybe about aesthetics that's aesthetically pleasing maybe.
But different things please different people, so it's not just
Right.
aesthetic.
Well, right, what's aesthetically pleasing for you, and that might be where to start creating a relationship.
Yeah. Okay, well, can we give them another?
We are very